Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the next Backupmonster Show episode. This is the 49th of the episode. We just reckon and realized that we've been doing the Backupmonster Show for more than 2 years. So keep in touch and subscribe us to be on the next 15 episode. But this time, I have a great opportunity to speak with Ian Smith. So, Ian, welcome, my friend.
Welcome to me. Thank you. What a great intro, Paweł. I feel as though anything I say is going to be slightly underwhelming after your electric guitar intro.
Yeah, yesterday we spoke with Jan. Jan is playing on drums, so we said, okay, we need to more often see each other because after COVID, our let's say sessions and go into we cannot do it in a weekly or to be weekly cadence when we used to do, but definitely we will prepare some good new riffs, and we still are ahead of our let's say going into the studio with the team, so looking forward to it, maybe 2024. But let's not concentrate on the bare machine, but on your side. So Ian Smith, the technology executive and founder of Gospel Technology. But before Gospel, we actually met more than 10 years ago, where when you build the Butterfly software, and then you've been in IBM. So it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
How you feel? You look good. This is the worst part. You look even better than I saw you 10 years ago. How you do it?
Very, very kind. I have 3 young children I kind of run around after, which does kind of keep me relatively fit. But
Okay.
Paweł, respect to you. You've been going now for a long time, and I super impressed by your ability to persist and be consistent in what you do. So hugely inspiring yourself.
So we met when we both working in a backup. I was a backup consultant these days, and I remember that I catch you up and I said, Ian, how to do it better? I then show you that I started just building a company called Storware. It was really early stage, and I realized that we have this, let's say, drink some beer in a Stockholm on one of the user group, and then I showed you that okay, I've been selling the IBM Spectrum Protect, but right now I have a vision to building something on top of it. We started to talk about the endpoints, etc. So it's been a while. I still stuck in a backup, as you see.
Strangely, I'm actually getting pulled back in. Like I try to get out, but I'm getting pulled back into storage. Like I tell you, I've spent some time away from like that hardcore storage backup infrastructure space, which I do love. But in the last 2 or 3 years, some phenomenal innovations around NVMe, around like how flash storage has evolved, how that's been addressed now with huge networking. I think that I do some investing now, and I kind of been looking at some of the startups that have kind of emerged in the last 2 years around storage, specifically around kind of address like this whole new wave of language model IO profiles, highly random, real-time AI. Like the work, like at the end of the day, storage was always exciting to me, kind of still is, and it's kind of going through a bit of a renaissance, I believe, with like a new type of workload requirement, all based upon like real-time processes occurring within computing systems. That human-machine interface that needs to be real-time. The processing of information behind that requires a whole different level of storage performance, and it's like super exciting to see that kind of like market find innovation again. It's quite exciting. So it'll probably be back
because 10 years ago when we've met, it was many many talks regarding the data-driven way. Yeah. So then the storage was changing into the new direction. In my opinion, it was a little bit stuck, but right now it's full reunion. But let's just realize and remind what this data-driven way meant to you 10 years ago, and how you see this change. How you see this change since the last 10 years, since this decade.
Totally. Like data-driven industry was really around moving from, human intuition to actually trying to process the information that you have within your existing business or within your domain of control. So, Butterfly was really around an attempt to, create digital processes based on empirical data. And that empirical data was really around consumption and utilization and the associated commercial kind of impact of that empirical information. Like philosophically, I've been through like a huge journey where I've actually started, certainly over the last few years, I've started to lose faith in a data-driven approach, ironically, because actually data can actually give you whatever answer you want. And trying to be objective is really the thing. But, Butterfly was really around taking human-led transformation and saying, look, these are the key data points. This is what we want to optimize for, operational cost. We want to have X level of service and performance and availability. And Butterfly was really around helping organizations transform into that empirically. And also it was like a double-edged sword really, because it allowed the future state vendor to actually deploy the technology and have the customer realize the benefits. Now, ironically, that story is a 10-year-old story, right? Kind of cycle. But more recently, I've been involved in some startups, like one called Lighthouse. They're kind of taking the same approach, but with a slightly different lens, which is a lens of ESG, environmental sustainability, that sort of thing. And actually, it's given a whole new wave of COOs and CIOs just a bit better objective insight into what their businesses are doing, which I think has got to be a good thing, right?
But then after being in backup and a storage, you did some switch. So you decided, okay, I will start the gospel technology, and I will go into the blockchain from the data to build something different. So the question to you, I would like to get more familiar, and all of the audience, what actually the gospel technology is doing today, or what it stands for, and what actually the blockchain means to you today, because it's also it's changing rapidly.
Hugely. Let's go back to the beginning. 2016, huge hype cycle around decentralization. And I think that, I still see these decentralization, democratization, and decarbonization. Somebody's put those three words together in some sort of meaningful way. Recently, I read on a marketing document. But if we go back to decentralization, the hypothesis back in 2016 essentially was, Bitcoin is disintermediating centralized financial institutions and allowing trusted peer-to-peer connections. Right? What does that mean? What it means is that if we're transacting, if two actors or entities are transacting, traditional and current methodology would suggest that we're going to have a trusted intermediary. That person or institution or algorithm is going to ensure that the pre-state and post-state transactions are absolute, that the transactional value is realized on both sides, just standard transactional logic. But Bitcoin obviously kind of came from nowhere. Satoshi Nakamoto wrote a piece. It was actually built on technology that was hypothesized back in Bell Labs in the 90s. So this is not new technology, pre-internet kind of thing. But essentially, the idea of, okay, well, if we have a ledger of transactions that everybody has a copy of, and that copy is an absolute ledger with internal logic that would suggest it can never be changed. If it's changed, then everybody else's would kind of suggest that that one's out of date. So you have this network of ledgers which allow a set of participants who are approved to transact in a very trusted way without the need for a big central kind of repository or a trusted, identity that everybody kind of trusts. So, decentralization was essentially an attempt to remove central authority from, when blockchain originally came out, everybody was like, well, this is going to change everything, right? So we're going to, and wherever there is a central authority, we can change that. And kind of watch what happened with digital currency and banks. Now, dude, like gospel, I was never into, and I'm not into changing the world's financial system. That is under so much pressure. We're probably going to go into another, 2008 kind of like financial crisis. There's all sorts of crazy stuff going on in the world. However, what I kind of thought was, certainly off the work we were doing at IBM and working with you guys in like the channel and really understanding customer problems around adopting cloud technology, it was kind of like, is there a use case for a decentralized ledger for data when data is transacted? So if I'm sending information to you, or I'm accessing your information, or we're kind of like collaborating on information to ensure trust within the participants, can we have a ledger of behavior or even use that to control access? That was kind of my initial kind of thesis on, what we were going to do at Gospel. And, very quickly found some phenomenal customers and some amazing traction where we really started to deploy a blockchain-based architecture to improve the data security and access control, even if that information wasn't within your data center. And that was the original kind of premise, back in 2016.
Because the data, when you say in data security in 2023, it's much more obvious. But in 2016, when you said, okay, let's decentralize, let's not have a single point of authority, it can be looks, I guess for many people, for many enterprises, it looks, difficulty from the implementation perspective.
Yeah, hugely difficult. Yeah. I think that I was at a period in my life where I thought, I can change the world with this. And the reality is, transformation of enterprise is really hard. Whilst, you can build a theoretical future state architecture, which is by far superior to existing methods of siloed data storage and kind of multiple methods of sharing, actually deploying that technology is quite difficult, and we can get into some of the challenges and things we've learned. But what I would say is, I think just last week, 300 million personal data elements were breached. Okta was breached last month. Like, Paweł, this problem is not fixed, right?
Yeah, I know.
But
I realize that it's even more challenging these days because more and more enterprises or companies talking about this threat. Yes, everybody's talking about, not how, but when your data will be compromised. So this is the still worldwide huge problem. And I'm, open question how this technology that you applied since 2016 could still reversialize and change the way how the enterprises perceive the way how they could even better build defenses against the bad guys.
Very good question. I don't know the answers. What I do think is I think that we're an interesting pivot point, actually. And I mean, like, human beings in how we see privacy. Like I would potentially suggest that we're in a post-privacy era now, where nobody really knows who's got access to what. The base assumption is that everything is shared and accessible. Even protecting intellectual property on a global stage is very different now than it was 20 years ago. Whether people respect that or not, I don't know. In some ways, like, my question would be, is privacy even important? Do you know? And therefore, like, if it is, then yes, solutions are needed. However, what I would suggest is the exponential growth and deployment of artificial intelligence and digital cognitive systems that are processing data. Like, the underlying data infrastructure is not in place for us to use those technologies. It just doesn't exist. It's just not in place. However, businesses, public functions are racing to get competitive edge through the use of cognitive systems, AI, machine learning, generative AI, conversation, all these different things.
even 2 weeks ago, I was 2 weeks ago, I was at VMware Explorer, and they discussed about the AI labs, and they said, okay, we know that everybody would like to, grab and get the best from the AI, the learning, the experience from the AI, and all of the data that is inside. But from the other side, we would like to close and get this AI on-prem without sharing this knowledge to, for example, competition. So it's even, the biggest players like VMware, they didn't have also the answer how to do it, and it's how to be competitive, how to, be ahead from the others. So everybody would like to attract and get this data in as fast as possible way. But from the other side, without sharing your models, without sharing your processes and everything what is inside to the third party or the public vendors, it will not happen. So, they promote the AI labs as a part of some hybrid mode. But, after even I saw this keynote, I said, I'm not sure if they have any clue in which direction it will goes. And I guess still many enterprises build the vision, but they still, have a question mark in which direction it will go, especially in a data security part.
I think there's two interesting elements. Like, number one is back in the mid 2010s, I was so convinced that the big challenges that the world was facing and the business was facing would only be fixed through collaboration. The entire basis of gospel, for gospel to be successful, for gospel to enable change, was that human behavior would say economic, the global economy, the reality of the environment and sustainability, these problems we're going to have to fix cohesively. We're going to have to work together. Governments, geographies, businesses, we're going to have to come up with standards and the way we behave to kind of fix these problems, because no country, no government is going to fix it in themselves. And the problem with that is it actually leads to apathy, because there's people who, like, it appalls me, but they throw litter out of cars. And I think that in their mind, they think, well, the Chinese power stations are pumping. They probably don't think anything, actually. They just throw it out of the car. But the reality is, it would be easy to say my personal impact is so small on fixing something when there's huge superpowers that aren't doing anything. So why should I bother, right? That apathetic approach is horrible, because I think if we were all moving together, we would all move forward. That's one element. So like, that was just fundamental. Like, my theory that collaboration would fix things, that was just fundamentally wrong. And like, in the last 2 years, I would say, quantum computing is another, like, arms race, certainly in the financial sector. Everybody's racing to have the most highest performance processing system and have that within their business to create competitive advantage. And we're seeing huge amounts of development there in terms of quantum. Amazing results, huge. And the second one, obviously, is AI, taking cost out, removing human behavior, improving consistent customer experience, massively accelerating data-driven processes. So AI and kind of quantum are becoming these huge, like almost monolithic, like old school monolithic investments for businesses. However, so we've kind of seen that collaboration move to centralization. So decentralization as a vision somewhat lost. One important point is regulation, and like, I'm so compelled by the improved control over personal information and compliance associated with that. And I think that's catching up to crypto. We're seeing Binance fold. We're seeing kind of Coinbase create growth because they've been ethical and they've really followed the regulation, have worked with that. AI is the Wild West right now, right? We don't know how to regulate cognitive systems, but it will catch up. Like, what we've seen in blockchain and what we've learned in blockchain is, don't be naughty in the period of unregulation. Be ethical. Look at where compliance should be met around personal information, data being fed in AI. Because if you're naughty, it'll probably catch up with you when your regulation catch up to where the technology is. Does that like? I don't know what the answers are, Pavel, but I'm fascinated to see what's happening in the market right now. And AI will become regulated.
before we moved into the AI, because it's a significant part of our conversation, let's summarize the blockchain part. You feel like today, 2023, in 2024 plus, how will blockchain will be treated from the technology perspective? It will be, let's say, the excellence or excited technology to drive with, or it will start it to be some kind of the standard or even boring one because of the AI, and everybody will, all of the masses will move into that direction. What's your opinion or statement here?
Look, there are some very clever people working on blockchain-based businesses and systems. They're not marketing, they're not out there. I kind of speak to various of the founders every few months. They're making significant progress. Everybody dreams of the open AI ChatGPT moment for blockchain, where a really very complex to understand technology is surfaced in a way that is so accessible and can create so much creativity over the people who use it, right? And blockchain is never really that moment because it's quite a deep, I've always believed, an infrastructure component. And I think where it has surfaced in cryptocurrency, so volatile and so messy right now, maybe in 5 years when that kind of has gone away and kind of like, regulated, fintechs or currency applications of businesses are starting to become mainstream, then I believe blockchain will become much more acceptable for other use cases. And what I know at Gospel too, we're still working on intellectual property, we're still developing use cases, and I believe that will start to emerge in the next 2 to 3 years. Our opening conversation, Pavel, was how you've stuck with this over the last 10 years. I look for inspiration everywhere, and inspiration is so important. I feel like things that can inspire you to want to invest energy and time can be so much more important than actually data. Sometimes there can be a human element that triggers some interest that makes you want to invest. I look at these artists. Like, there's a guy, David Hockney. I took my daughter to a David Hockney art show in London. This is a guy. He's in his 80s. He's been producing art since probably since he was single-digit age. He pioneered the use of the photocopier in creating art. Like, photocopiers, was that the 80s or something? I should know. He pioneered digital cameras. He also pioneered using the iPad. So one person's consistent effort over time has bridged 3 huge technology leaps. And I still believe with blockchain, and me personally, consistent effort over time, we will start to see interesting, and we are seeing, but it's very early, interesting use cases where the technology can be tangibly seen to be adding value.
Great.
So I think it's a waiting game a little bit.
And we know how the technology is emerging, and it has its own life cycle, and it can be various. So of course, you can go into the garden and see how the sinusoid changing, but it's not always applied to every technology. Some technology coming back after the years, or it's well implemented, but nobody has any clue that it's working behind the scenes. But what everybody knows right now, and when the human race, put its own attraction and attention, is from the last year or two, the open AI or the AI technology. And this is the for sure, we know this is a huge shift, and this is the change that will apply our lives and the lives of our children and grandchildren for the several decades. And we can easily compare that it's like inventing the personal computer. So it will change everything. It's actually changing everything. Not everybody noticed how many things already has been changed because of AI. But definitely, I would like to get your personal touch here, and an expression how you see this, because I know that we trying as a human race run all the time, but AI giving us a huge booster. And in short, I don't know the answer how much profitable will be as a human race against the threats that we have because of this technology. But I'm curious your personal, let's say, statement and opinion here.
If I'm honest, I don't really know what AI is. I don't know what it is. It seems to have come really quickly in the last 24 months. And, I was kind of like, you and I, we were working on big data solutions, analytics, deep learning, machine learning. So we've seen what is like old school infrastructure evolution through, big data, analytics, deriving insight from information, moving to real time, rules. Blockchain has this concept of smart contracts where you can create behaviors based on data and stimuli within the system, within a controlled system. So, and then OpenAI kind of evolved the transformers and the language transformers and, large language models to feed some sort of processing system, which allowed it to operate through ChatGPT in a very human way, which was so compelling. Now, when I saw that, I was like, well, hang on, firstly, I wouldn't want to be in the search engine business because this is it's like search without the ads. It's search without the 85 pages of Boolean responses that kind of look like what you've responded. But then I thought, well, if it's not giving me options on the response, how do I trust that its response is in line with my kind of ethics and social position? And then you kind of get into the reality of, well, who's programming this stuff in the background? So there's so many questions. And then there's this drama recently about, the OpenAI founders kind of leaving and going to Microsoft and then going back. And then there's a new product called Q. Is it just a marketing thing? I don't know. But I'm still yet to really understand what's the cognitive process or invention that's occurred in the last 12 months that's beyond some chat surfacing of pseudo web search with some sort of prioritization algorithm, some sort of large language model where you have specific data sets that you can train the chat on. So it's super interesting, loads going on. But what I'm seeing is actual general intelligence, AGI, I think it's called, a actual ability to be cognitive and think. I don't know how far that away is. I'm not super deep in this, but what I have seen is lots of startups in a very agile way, rapidly developing specific solutions off the LLM or the transformer technology, which is hugely exciting. And, human processes, which are complex, are essentially being data driven. We've kind of seen UiPath and robot process automation allow people to kind of drive computers. Well, if you have a computer, why can't a computer kind of drive itself without the human interaction? And seeing these use cases evolve, whether it be very specific in business around accounting or around marketing or content generation, or even gaming, like the whole gaming industry has had, and non-player characters, NPCs for a decade. Now NPCs are not NPCs, they're AI, right? So you're fighting an AI army over there. So we're seeing a lot of shift in our language, in the way we talk about computers and intelligence and processing, and it's happening very quickly. I think the practical deployment with our kind of domain of expertise of enterprise infrastructure and kind of how companies build computing systems, we've seen AWS announce Q, we've seen AWS announce, environments where you can rapidly build stuff. We've got Microsoft leaning in hugely, with OpenAI as a partner. I don't know how that's going to figure out, but, we're seeing the big players now. Salesforce too, Einstein's been around a while. Salesforce are massively starting to shift into AI. I think Mark Benioff tried to actually get the OpenAI workers to go to Salesforce. I mean, it's absolutely brilliant.
It's when you're watching from the, let's say, the viewer side, it's quite exciting.
It. My answer to your question was probably terrible.
It's like watching the Polish government for the last weeks. Believe me, it's a huge change and it's like a circle. You can enjoy House of Cards in Poland. So
well, let's hope that is not going to be. Governments will probably be replaced by AI at some point. I mean, I don't know. Look, we're in this thing that everybody is super excited about the art of the possible with this technology. We're all accepting it's pretty early, However, it is developing very quickly, and we're seeing huge venture money and businesses lean in, which is brilliant. And unlike blockchain, I think AI has the ability to give agile return. We're seeing results, we're seeing more efficient systems, we're seeing better outcomes very quickly. So hugely exciting. From a personal perspective, I've seen a number of big AI projects stall, and they've stalled when it's come to, okay, well, how do we ensure governance around the information that's going into the language models? How can we ensure consent? How can we record what's been processed so we can retrospectively, question decisions or understand why the AI is making the decisions? So I think that what I would say to everybody is, what an amazing opportunity. I think that the world can be quite a closed and negative place. There's a lot of challenges in the global economy and everything that's going on. However, AI is coming, and it shouldn't be seen as a threat. I think it's for people who have a real passion and interest in kind of seeing this technology move, get involved. I think it's going to be a fascinating 10, 20 years of watching what happens with this and being part of it. So I think it's a huge opportunity.
From the founder perspective, from the business perspective, you will watch as a viewer, or you will be investing into this area as a gospel, as an Iron Smith.
Well, I'm very cynical of AI washing. The amount of companies I've seen that were founded in the 90s that now have .ai on their domain name, I'm not an AI. I don't want AI wash unless I can actually see a tangible and valuable and useful use case of some form of ledger, because that's what gospel was. Maybe gospel will evolve away from that. We're speaking to a number of customers at the moment, asking them to help us with logging and recording information that's being processed. There may be better ways to do that. I don't know. I'm very pragmatic in the way it's approaching it. What I am really interested in, and I've been spending some time with some other companies right now, is number one is the sales process, right? The sales process around AI, I think, is not lead gen. That is just horrible. The amount of companies, the amount of people who just said lead generators. I get swamped with 20 a day. It's become so frustrating. Actually, I need an AI to stop lead generators, R&D tax credits, and recruiters trying to contact me each day. I think maybe I'll just build that this weekend and fix that problem. But the whole the sales process of lead, discussion, demonstrate, proposal, and close, that sales process does not work anymore. I think we're dealing with sophisticated technology users and customers. We're dealing with curious people. The quality of the CTOs and CIOs I speak to. I was speaking to one last week, and she had such a deep understanding of machine learning. This was not a conversation that, look, we have some sort of blockchain or AI product, buy it. No, I had to bring special. This was a very sophisticated conversation. So customers and organizations are so skilled now in the way they understand and are passionate and interested and curious about technology. I believe that the sales stuff really has to be cooperative building in some ways. And like I personally have seen a lot of success over the last 2 years in kind of starting with a collaborative approach to building something, co-building, and because you kind of bring in you as a software vendor and a customer along on a journey, especially when really the kind of trajectory of this technology is somewhat unknown, right? And I think that sales process can't be traditional infrastructure selling. You've got to think much more creatively and cohesively about how that works, which has been, super interesting. And I think, for me, it's really trying to do what's right by the owners of information that's being processed in these systems. So if we can add transparency and auditability that maybe prepares customers or companies for the inevitable regulation. And if your house is already kind of in order with your ability to show, what these large language models contain, how they've been used, when consent's been maintained, or, around that data, I think that's just a really good practice to get into now as regulation kind of matures in the space.
What I will also see that, closing the AI part and going into the startup, you see that right now in the last, let's say, several 12, 24 months, the numbers of the startup, I think, rose even more than in the previous years. So it will be the 1,000 or the hundreds of thousands new entities that they want to change the world. But of course, only the plenty of them, or the percentage of them, will keep in track because of the difficulty of running the startups. And we spoke about it when we discussed our episode, that you also lately invest your time to not only engaging but explaining the startups founders, explaining your story and how to accelerate business from the product idea into the reality. So we spoke about that without sales, even if you have the best idea in the world, without the customers, it's a matter of time that you will collapse. And of course, numbers from the startup perspective are not good, because one of 90% of the startups will collapse, or most collapse, because of the lack of investment in most cases. So what do you think, and how you leveraging your all of your experience when you speak with the startups? So what's the story behind I am here?
Well, look, I kind of share what I've learned, and maybe, I think as you get older, you become humbled by life. It kind of hits you like a freight train and kind of keeps going over you as you kind of get older. In some ways, I watched a Simpsons episode once, and it was like Homer Simpson. He got into boxing, and he was he won every fight, and the only way he won was the other person would punch him so much to get tired and fall over. And they X-rayed Homer's skull, and it turned out he had this tiny brain with this hugely thick skull, and it allowed him just to win boxing matches by the opponent just falling over from fatigue, until he met Mike Tyson. Obviously, Mike Tyson, I think, then they realized Homer shouldn't do boxing. Like, in some ways, my philosophy is, if you have high conviction over something and you can maintain that conviction over time, and you can slowly increment and iterate and accept that even though you have high conviction, your execution path may change, and you can move with that, but you can keep consistent over time, then I think you've got a good chance of being successful, right? And what I've seen is AI example. We've talked about AI today. It's hype at the moment. It's super early. Everybody wants to talk about it. Sucks the oxygen out of the room. Cool. However, are you going to still be talking about AI in 10 years? Or are you the type of person who's going to move on to the next thing, right? Mm-hmm. And, where I have seen things, it's very easy to begin companies, right? You have companies helping you create companies. You have free cloud credits. You have huge agile automated builds. You have AI that will produce your marketing material.
You need 15 minutes. Go to the Wix, create landing. So it's a matter of a few hours, and you can start. Yes.
Done. So I could jump on ChatGPT, create an AI company, create a website. Done. It would be done on this call. The problem is that the barrier to entry is so low. Then, if you want to make it, how do you create that resilience and consistency over time, especially as the barrier to entry was so low? Like, if I kind of said, let's go and climb Everest, right? Climbing Everest, the barrier to entry of climbing Everest, that's climbing Everest, right? It's not jumping over a fence, right? And like, creating a big startup is like climbing Everest, but the barrier to entry is, well, we can create a market, we can create a vision, AI can produce things. So I guess my caution is that, like whether it's health and fitness, whether it's companies, it's about how do you create a sustainable model of behavior that you can persist and be consistent with. And I think that in other founders that I talk to, I try to work out how to make them feel good about what they're doing, and work out focusing on the founder, supporting them on their journey. Because I think if they're in a good state, they will stay consistent and persist through whatever challenge, whether that's within the business or outside of the business that they're going through, right? but ultimately it's everybody's journey. And I think that here's a time for the cliches. Enjoy the journey. Don't focus on the, it's all this stuff's well understood. But for me, it comes down to trying to be mindful and being in the present and really trying to appreciate that this is part of the journey. The challenges are part of the journey, and to try and enjoy it, right? And to try and enjoy it to create a sustainable mindset that allows you to be consistent. And one thing I've seen is this, I think it's called toxic gym culture. It's like people are either all or nothing. They're either, we're going to marathon, I'm going to bench press 120 kilos, whatever it is. And then when that breaks, it's nothing. I've hurt myself. I'm injured. I don't want to do it. I don't want it to, So it is that all or nothing approach, I believe, is toxic. And where I'm seeing success, and even with Butterfly, and it's like, how do you create something that's sustainable, that you can sustain both physically and mentally, and the people around you can sustain, and that you can do that over time, and that gives you a larger aperture to be successful, I believe.
Especially when we live in a times that build a SaaS application that you will start earning the money in 30 days. Yeah, build your belly, lose your belly. Yeah, without going to the gym. So this is also the problem that we live in the instant world, that we would like to get the results in ASAP mode always. But everybody who went this journey, we know that this consistency and the proper mindset, you need the time. Because you can be the best believer what you are already doing, but you need the time to build the followers. It's not come in a day or one conference or the year plus. Of course, there are some stories that we're reading and they have a shot, but this is the stories from the PR and marketing perspective, and they all always showing you some, let's say, the peak points from. And nobody knows that 90% of the investment or the time engaging, it's not visible. It's always, this is what I noticed. Every success is, behind the scenes has enormous amount of the work. When you mentally, physically, when you said about this marathon, when you said about the well-being, is the same. Yeah. If you want to be a runner, cold runner, you need to run consistently. Not for a week or two, but for the years. Yeah, I remember when I started, when friends asked me, "Are you a runner?" and I said, "Not yet. I just started running for the 6 months. After 3 years, I will share the story that I'm running." Yes, because then I feel personally that I'm committed to it, not as a one shot. So I needed 1,000 running sessions to say, okay, I'm a kind of the guy who is running consistently for the last 3 years. And this is how the business owners, in my opinion, also thinks that product as fast as possible, get the seed, get the money, and rule the world. But for us as a founders with a little bit longer story, it's a totally different topic. But from my perspective, sharing the experience that you have, for example, it can be enormous amount of the the way where to avoid the pitfalls, because everybody need to take this journey. And if we have somebody like a mentoring who will help you to avoid him, maybe not all, because it's not possible, but most of the let's say things that it's replicated through the companies, it's a huge advantage.
We could have a whole separate call.
I know.
I think that startup funding, whether it's bootstrap, external funding, borrowing, all of those lead to very different behavioral profiles and priorities. Product market fit. Oh wow! I mean, the sleepless nights I have been through, about product market fit and what that means and points of inflection. Like the whole startup journey. Like I've done about 3 now, and like I've done strap through to exits, enterprise exits, or even VC backed that have grown very quickly and then flatlined and then slowly grow. Like Gospel's kind of slowly growing with a long tail. So it's super interesting. And also I think that founders, I mean, I love speaking to founders. I love one of the things that I've found is just staying connected with what people are building and what problems they're seeing is fascinating and so exciting to feel that energy of people, founding companies to fix problems. It's a fascinating, and I'm very grateful for that experience. And working with founders, I tend to just focus on their mindset and their sustainability. And I think to your point on running, it's almost like forget, are you enjoying each step? If you're like I do a lot of cycling, it's kind of like I just think, and I've cycled up mountains and same thing, and I just think it's just keep the pedals going. And am I enjoying, like, everything else is hurting, the weather's awful, like loads of things in the back of my mind, I shouldn't be on the bike, but am I enjoying turning the pedals? Yes, I am. And then 4 years pass and I've been turning the pedals for 4 years, and I've enjoyed that. So mindfulness, I think, is so important for founders, or in fact anybody in these extremely hard economic times. It's a really tough, we're talking about VCs and businesses. So many people are struggling to pay their utility bills. Prices are crazy in the shops. Inflation's frightening. We're in a hard time. I think there is mindfulness and stuff that kind of each and every one of us needs to kind of apply to our own lives, because I think a lot of people are struggling right now, and I feel terrible for that. And I think any businesses or founders that can somehow affect cost of living, economics, environment, and actually do important things, I think they're very noble. They're very noble causes.
Yeah. So let's and keep in a good shape, not only the physically but mentally. It's important, especially after the COVID time. We've seen many people struggling, and they don't smiling when they started in the work, even if they build by their own rules. So to finding this motivation, to finding this the place where you can start it to smiling each day, it's really important. So not only hustling for the new business, but sometimes stop by or take a step back, rethink again things, and remind why we are doing it. So it's really important. I have also many discussions in early days, even this week, with two founders. And some of them saying like, I love what I'm doing, but I started to hate it. Yeah. So it's they need to reframe the thinking, or remind why they started to keep the motivation going. But moving between the work-life balance, I think we have the last topic to discuss, because Ian are extraordinary guy, moving from the storage into the blockchain. And in the meantime, this guy started the UK winery. So you started your personal business, and you making a wine. So what's going on? This is totally different story. Yeah, a few questions. How and what actually motivates you to go into this direction, where you actually find the time for it, and is it, and what this kind of the business gives you, personally? Yes.
Yeah, look, what you do in your 30s and try to do at the same time, I think in some ways, when I look back at that time, I was maybe trying to do too many things. I had 3 children as well. So I think that there was a period of my life where I had a huge amount of energy and a lot of really good people around me, which kind of pushed me to do things. And I enjoyed it. I'm much more thoughtful now about how I spend my time. I actually don't drink alcohol hardly now, which is ironic because I have a wine brand. In some ways, I think maybe I'll create a non-alcoholic wine. I don't know, but the whole wine thing.
So you have people to taste it. I can come around and help you with it.
There's plenty of people who will happily, with the tasting. Listen, the wine thing has been a fascinating and really enjoyable journey in creating a direct-to-consumer business, tangible product, not software. I found, software is brilliant. I love software. It's like really, I had a Commodore 64 when I was 5, and I've always enjoyed that. But there was something that I wanted, something tangible, right? So I was fortunate enough to buy some land near Henley-on-Thames, and there was actually a vineyard next door. Jumped over the fence. It was a very friendly lady working in the vineyard. I had a quick chat to her, and she said to me, "Definitely don't do a vineyard. It's going to take too long. It's going to cost far too much money. You know, you'll get bored. It'd be a nightmare." And it turned out to be Barbara Laithwaite, who's quite big in the UK wine, probably one of the most important people in the UK wine industry. I think actually recently made Dame Barbara Laithwaite. So like a hugely influential and inspiring figure, inspiring me not to do it. And as I jumped over the fence, I was like, definitely doing it. And 10 years later, and a huge amount of money in, it turns out that Barbara was absolutely right. But I guess, like, for me, I wanted to create an uncompromising product from England. With the best of skills and produce from around the world, right? So I had this amazing piece of land, terrible for farming, full of flint and chalk, and you know, no good for really useful farming. So very low yield. So it's like very gently south-facing slopes, surrounded by medieval woodland. It's just this beautiful story. It was actually called Kingwood. It was where King would come out of London. There was a huge house built nearby, and hunt. It was just an amazing area. It kind of seemed like I had to do it because the area was so right. And I managed to connect with this amazing team down in Brighton, who were, you know, back in 2015. This is early stage 2012, probably as far back as early stage UK viticulture. Right, there was Nye Timber, a few big other vineyards and wineries. This was quite small, but we went out to Alsace, acquired rootstock from the Champagne region, Pinot Noir, Pinot Meunier, Chardonnay, about 12,000 vines, planted them. Was super fortunate to meet Emma Rice, who is, I would say, one of the best winemakers in the world. Like, really, really humble, amazing human being, super smart, traveled all around the world, New Zealand, South Africa, America, learned with the best, always getting stuck in, but real passionate about oenology and creating amazing wine. And created this partnership. And, you know, in 2018, we had our first vintage, which was, you know, about 3 tons of really good quality grape. You know, saw through then, that obviously went down to the winery. That saw through COVID and lots of crazy global events, to the extent, you know, traditional method, no glyphosate, no fertilizer, you know, no artificial stuff, not organic, but, you know, being realistic with the climate and the terroir of the region. You know, we're seeing organic wines now become very, very popular as technology and techniques are changing. The 18 was a wine that I was very proud of. It was my first wine. It took a long time, a lot of emotional investment. And Paweł, like farming, like my heart goes out to farmers. Like, man, when it comes to control, there are weather, there is circumstances totally out of your domain of control, and you could have worked all year and invested blood, sweat, and tears, and something happens and you lose the. I mean, it's so stressful.
So if you think that there's building the software is stressful, then build the winery, yes?
Well, I don't know. You can see my beard is pretty much all white now. It's like, but anyway, so we've got this 2018 vintage, sat in bottle. I was no rush. Like, this is another one of those things I tell the kids, like, to do great things, it does take time, right? It takes time for things to mature. Sometimes you can't shortcut things, right? But amazingly, last year we got a Decanter Award for the 2018 vintage, one of the best wines in the world, supposedly. I'm super proud of it. It's super clean, easy to drink. Everybody loves it. And it's champagne in its style. It's very gentle, easy to drink. And, you know, amazingly, after a huge amount of work, we've got it stocked in places like Jason Atherton's Michelin Stars, Berners Tavern in London, which are places that are so beautiful and so well maintained. I feel like super proud that my wine's been enjoyed in those places.
Beauty.
But yeah, it took a long time and took a lot of money, and I do get pleasure from seeing people enjoy it. But I would say to anybody, farming business is fruit, this sort of thing. They're very, very complex, difficult businesses with a huge amount of risk that's outside of your control.
But it's beauty to conclude our conversation, as a founder, as a technology geek, as a, think long term, and from the seed to the final product, you need to be persistent and patient, yes? And you need to be aware that something will for sure happen. You're saying about the bad weather, COVID, the technology, the people, something goes wrong. And even if you will spend hundreds of the hours preparation, you cannot estimate what will go wrong. This is a part of the game. So this is also the information for all of the people who will plan to build it for their own. So this risk is the part of the deal. So you need to be you need to take this stress on your own, or have a proper people near you to help you in the toughest scenarios, because it will. These scenarios will happen. So this is the part of the deal. But I'm super.
Yeah, very quickly. The people are at Emma, at the Wine, Tom Hughes at Butterfly. Like people are getting good people around you that support what's good in you and maybe make up some of the gaps. That's what I would firmly advise.
And when you have a good connection, people, regardless if you will go into the AI, because AI will not help you in tough times. The good friends and the family. This is your let's say the fundamentals that you need to strict with to think in long term and to maintain your, let's say, craft, regardless if you're doing a software or the wine, like our friend Ian. Ian, we are close to 1 hour. I know that we could spend even more, but we will have always opportunity to come back into the Backupmonster Show. So I would like to close the conversation. We started when we meet each other, we started with the data-driven concept, go through the blockchain, spoke about the gospel technology, talk about the decentralization and centralization way, go through the AI, and close with the good glass of wine from the Kingwood Estate. Kingwood Estate.
Thank you. That's it. You got it.
That was a pleasure, friend, to have you here. Anything else from your side to close the conversation? The audience.
It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Seeing your smiling face, it makes me smile. So, thank you so much for the opportunity. And if I'm sure we'll get a chance to go to Poland, and I'll come and buy you a beer. We'll have a good time.
Beauty. So have a great day. Stay in touch. Keep motivated. And if you would like to get more about Ian, just go to the LinkedIn. Find Ian Smith. If you are one of the founders looking for some good advices, I believe that Ian is the best person to speak with. And remember his Kingswood Estate, yes, the winery.
Kingwood Estate.
Yeah. So thank you, Ian, again, and for all of the audience. Have a great day, and see you on the next Backupmonster Show episode.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.